Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where you're calling in from. We're going to give people a few more minutes to log in as we usually do. And so while you are joining, please feel free to put into the chat where you're calling in from. I say calling like it's a phone call, but where you're zooming in from. So I'm coming to you from, it's still a little bit cloudy here in South Central Pennsylvania, but it's been unusually warm. So I will take that over snow any day. So let's take a look at the chat. Things are starting to roll in here. Of course, we got Sean out in Bend, Oregon. Good afternoon, James from London, UK. Patrick from Sweden. Nathan, New York City. Dave, hi Dave, welcome from New Hampshire. Michelle from Baltimore, Maryland. You're just about an hour south of where I live. Angel or Angel from Los Angeles. Robert from St. Louis area, St. Louis, Illinois. Maybe I got that wrong. Tim from New Hampshire. We've got Bart from Belgium. David's rubbing it in from wine country, California. Welcome everyone. Hi, Oscar from Denver. All right, Janice in Germany, welcome. So we're going to go ahead and get started because I know our team is very excited to take your questions. And Sean has put a link into the chat for questions on Slido. So feel free to go head over there, start putting your questions into Slido. We'll take care of a few housekeeping things ahead of time. So our community conversations are virtual meetups featuring speakers from across our Autodesk community. Sessions range from deep dives, tips and tricks, and live demonstrations on products such as AutoCAD, Revit, Dynamo, Fusion 360, and of course, Civil 3D. We do roundtables on industry insights, emerging trends, and career stories, and more. So all experience levels, beginning to expert, are welcome. Feel free to reach out to us if you're interested in hosting a community conversation. Well, to start off today's infrastructure product roadmap, Ask Me Anything. My name is Kimberly Furman. I'm actually the Revit community manager, but I've been asked to host this session. I'm very excited about it. I actually do have a little bit of a background. I spent about 10 years in civil design, project management. I actually thought I left the dark side for architecture a long time ago, but happy to be back and hosting this session. I'll introduce you to our panelists in just a few moments. So first, our safe harbor statement. Really, if we make any forward-looking statements, and obviously this is a roadmap session, I don't want you to make any purchasing decisions based on our statements. If you are making purchasing decisions, please look at the software in its state today and that alone. And just a few logistical things. You can enable live transcription of the audio in 11 languages. And if you need to do that, you can go to your meeting controls, select more options, and turn on live captions. Again, there's the Slido link as well as the QR code. Feel free to add your questions in Slido. The session will be recorded, and we will be posting the recording on our community conversations when ready. Okay, so today our panelists, we have Dave, Tim, and Ramesh from the Civil 3D Recap InfraWorks team. And so I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and hopefully they'll tell you maybe a feature that they're excited about that was either recently released or coming up on the product roadmap. So Dave, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. We appreciate you investing some time with us. This is great. So on behalf of the team, just again, thanks. Yeah, I've been with Autodesk since 1997. I think Sean Hurley maybe a little bit longer, or you're a little longer than me, I want to say, but you know, definitely been around for a bit. And through the years, historically, you know, on the PM side, so for land desktop, Civil 3D, and most recently collaboration for Civil 3D. I am based in New Hampshire, and I think the most exciting thing that has been released, I have to say, is Desktop Connector 16. So I think that was a pretty easy one, right, Tim and Ramesh? if anyone that,
For
that
sure.
was,
Yeah.
that was what I was
Good
going to.
one.
So yeah, so I'll pass it on to Tim.
Thanks, Dave. So Tim Yarris, I'm the product manager for Civil 3D. I'm a relatively short timer compared to Dave and Sean, but yeah, I've only been here since 2006 in a whole bunch of different roles on the Civil 3D product team. But the one thing I think probably the currently available most like awesome feature as far as I'm concerned in Civil 3D, I would say would probably be the quarter transitions feature. So just being able to keep quarters a little bit less bulky and complicated, but making them more powerful and just generally more efficient. So I mean, long-standing requests that, again, as I'll show on the public roadmap in a couple minutes, I see some applause showing. That's awesome. That was our #1 voted thing up on the public roadmap. So I was really excited to get that into people's hands. So and we're still working on it. So that's me, and I'm going to pass it to Ramesh, maybe.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. So I'm Ramesh Sridharan. See, they're talking about like decades of Autodesk. I feel like I'm a baby here. I'm like Autodesk for 8 years. Of the exciting, I'm in Austin, Texas. I live in Texas. The exciting thing about the product is the one thing, the recap, you guys definitely, if you're not checked out, you should all definitely check out is the cloud-based visualization. Now you can see and share and collaborate the whole big point cloud data over the cloud with the ACC viewer or the BIM 360 viewer. That's the cool stuff. You have to check it out. And of course, some of the parametric modeling and the clipping planes kind of a thing, kind of making InfraWorks more accurate data you can actually create and author from the InfraWorks conceptual design model. Those are the two things probably I would pick are the latest ones.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And as I said, I'm Kimberly Furman, the Revit Community Manager. Behind the scenes, we have Sean Hurley and David Smoker keeping things running extra smooth today. So with that, I'm going to switch over to Slido so we can start taking questions.
Hey, Kimberly, just let,
Yes.
and we do have one other presenter. I've just promoted him up into the room, but Nigel Peters. So trying to get Nigel up in here, but Nigel is part of our team on the PM side. He'll be helping to answer questions. He leads the PM side for things like rail. He works closely with Tim on a number of the civil features, vehicle tracking, IFC, a number of things. So hammering questions related to those as well. Nigel is here to help answer those. Okay.
Awesome. Welcome, Nigel. All right. Okay, so I'm going to stop share. I'm going to switch what I'm looking at so I can find the Slido.
All right, and I'm going to start sharing now. Is that correct?
That's fine. Sure.
Awesome. Okay, great. So at this point, I'll start my sharing. And then so this is something, what I'm going to be sharing here is I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between a couple of different things here. And so first thing to keep in mind here, I believe all the attendees should have gotten this a link to this public roadmap, both in, I believe, in the invitation that you guys received initially, as well as Sean had provided a link to this in the chat. So we've had this version of our public roadmap out for quite a while now, and it's been a really great tool for us to help in our planning of our internal roadmap. And we've really been taking your feedback on this and your votes on this into consideration as we've been kind of deciding what it is that we're going to build into our products for upcoming releases. Some examples here that we can show of just kind of, as I mentioned, this has been a great tool because all you folks can vote on these different things and kind of give us your feedback on what's most important to you. And we really do keep that into consideration as we're developing our roadmap. And so in our released column here are things that we have recently added to our products. And you'll see here, like, I don't see it in here for some reason. It keeps disappearing. But anyway,
Tim, some of it could be that we put them back into under the capability area as well. Like,
there we go.
We've been experimenting, right?
Yeah. So here we go. Here's a great one. So this is perfect one.
So I added some value.
You did add some value, Dave. Yes. Right. Your many years of experience here are definitely paying off. But anyway, so as we've kind of talked about in past sessions like this, I mean, this is broken up by category as far as like the different columns represent either we have kind of a release column that we haven't updated. as much as we probably should have, but there are different columns to kind of show different industry areas and focus areas of the product. So things like platform and performance, land dev, roads and highways, and so on and so forth. What we've done here is like, okay, so yeah, so we kind of missed this. But anyway, so as you dig into this, you'll see that you can like pick each one of these cards and you can see more information about each of these things. And so once you pick a card, you'll see a little bit of a different view than what I'm seeing right here. But basically it gives you information about, like, there's an image kind of describing what it is that a particular item refers to, as well as a bit of a description. And if the description for this particular thing kind of comes from another area, such as the like Civil 3D or the InfraWorks ideas forum, then we include links out to the original post so that you can kind of get back into that original conversation for this particular item and either comment on it or continue to upvote it on there. But you'll see here that there are a number of different ways that you can, like, if something's important to you on here, you can vote for it, and then it adds your votes to the total here. You'll see here, this is just an example of, like, the quarter transitions one is one that I mentioned earlier that I'm super excited about. This came out in Civil 3D 2023.2, and we're still making enhancements to it over time, and it's really been a great feature. But this is the one that's been the #1 most voted feature up on this public roadmap, and it actually came from, this is one that you'll see if I pick back into it here. There were a whole bunch of different Civil 3D ideas forum posts that were related to this whole topic. And so the public roadmaps do not take the place of the ideas forums. The ideas forums are definitely a place where you can go and customers can go and submit ideas, and other additional customers can go on and comment on it and add feedback and that sort of thing and still vote for them. When we regularly comb through the ideas forums to both just kind of respond to your ideas up there, as well as just kind of get just a general sense of what's important to our customers. And when we get a sense that something is extremely important to our customers and it aligns strategically to something that we are interested in researching for a future release of our products, we kind of basically migrate that over into our public roadmap and just to kind of let folks know that it's something that we are taking under consideration for a future version of our products. And so you'll see a bunch of those types of things in the roadmap itself. So that's this roadmap. Currently, what we're in the process of doing right now is we're actually migrating this roadmap into a new tool. And so a lot of the other products here at Autodesk are also migrating into this same new tool. And so if you've attended any of this week's Ask Me Anything sessions from like the Revit team or the Dynamo team or anybody like that, you may have seen this format as well. But if I switch tabs here, you'll see a slightly new version of the public roadmap that we can kind of bounce back and forth between the two, because not everything has been really completely completed on this roadmap yet, but we're working currently on it. A couple things that you'll see very similar categories that we had in the other version that we were just looking at. One thing you'll see here is that might be a little bit more interesting to you to kind of give you a better sense of kind of where we are in the process of things is you'll see up at the top, there are a number of different categories that will show you what we have in progress. This page shows you things that are actively under development with our team. And we'll get into those in just a moment. You'll also see up next is a page that displays like category by category, things that we have under consideration for kind of our next in our backlog, things that we aren't necessarily having development resources behind currently, but they're kind of high on the list for like later on down the road. And then later is a column, it's a page that displays basically things that are certainly important to us, but they're just kind of a little bit further back in our backlog for the time being. But all these things are definitely things that we still have under consideration. And then the release column, we don't have anything in here yet because hopefully in the very near future, you'll be seeing some things from the in progress page will have been migrated into this page once they've like become publicly available. If I go back to the in progress column, you'll see like one thing that you can do that's very similar that you could do in the Trello version, the old version of the roadmap, that you couldn't do. I mean, well, okay, let's just kind of dig into it here. One thing, like if, for example, I pick on one of these cards, like let's use subassembly management as an example here. If you pick one of these cards, you get very similar information that you got before. So you'll see like an image showing kind of possibly an overview of what's going on here, but then you'll also see a description showing like, again, just the Civil 3D ideas or InfraWorks idea posts that are related to this. What you'll see that's a little bit different here, that's kind of cool, are you'll be able to vote for these items and you'll be able to kind of give a little bit more of a kind of degree of importance to each of these things. So if it's a nice to have, more important than just nice to have, or if it's absolutely critical for your current workflows, you can kind of weight your votes based on those three categories. You can also basically give us feedback directly on it. Like if you have like, if you want to tell the product team directly something about one of these items that you feel very strongly about, you can enter your comments here. And if you'd like us to follow up with you on your comments, and we encourage you to do so, provide your email address here, and then that will let us contact you and kind of get clarifying information about what it is that you have or with a comment that you left. So with that, I guess, Dave or Ramesh, anything that I'm missing here on the public roadmaps, like the new ones that we have here, or should we kind of give a little bit of an overview of kind of where we are?
Yeah, what I was going to say, Tim, it's on the Trello roadmap, and I don't know if you jumped on it enough, but furthest to the left, right, is the next. So this level of involvement right here is great for you to help us, I guess, as we would call it. You know, it's like help us drive the bus, right? Help us determine the areas that we're going to focus on. Because we do refer to this, like it can be, very clear when we're going through with our finite number of resources, what we're going to work on. These roadmaps and Autodesk Ideas Station are, absolutely key in justifying whether we're going to work on this or that. But on the about this roadmap column, so you can get into more of a tactical involvement, and that's as you scroll down into the get involved piece. And Tim, if you could speak a little to that, because I think we don't want this to be a one time where we see you up on the web up on this webcast and then we don't get involved beyond that. So can you speak to that, Tim?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for the reminder, Dave. So this is, we do these webcasts like this on the fairly regular basis. If it's quarterly or so, and this is kind of a public facing, like anybody can join this webcast. And so they're based on that. There's a lot of information that we can't necessarily share because it's a public forum. Kimberly shared our non-disclosure warning at the beginning of this and everything. But if you want to speak a bit more freely and have a bit more like direct, regular feedback with the product team and get a little bit more detail about kind of what is coming on the nearer term and kind of get a better sense of kind of what it is that we have under active development, we have a bunch of different programs here that basically are all kind of driven by the same portal. So the Autodesk feedback community, we have a page up on there called the Autodesk Infrastructure Futures Program, that there's a link here within this card that will let you join. And so once you join that particular program, that'll give you access to a whole bunch of different resources. So pre-release software, like if we have something in beta or even alpha, you'll be able to try that software out before it gets into production. So we definitely encourage people to do that, to just kind of give us their feedback before we have things out in the wild, and it's a little bit harder to change course after something's out in the wild. We do a weekly webinar that is a bit more detailed about specifically what it is that we currently have under active development, and it's a great way for us to kind of get connection with our our customers that are in this program so that they can kind of give us immediate feedback on what it is that we're working on. And again, just kind of make sure that we're solving the problems in the right way. And because it's generally things that are happening that are still under development, that feedback lets us kind of change course a bit more nimbly. Inside the factory events are things that we just had one actually last week that went very, very well. It's a live customer event where we host a small group of customers in a specific location, and basically it's an interactive event that just lets us just kind of get feedback on our products and our future directions and that sort of thing, and really have established a great relationship with our customers. And I mean, there's just tons of other things that the feedback portal lets you do as far as just keeping a much closer interaction with our product team, and just kind of, it just lets you be a part of the product development process, basically. So
yeah,
how'd I do, Dave?
Yeah, no, that was great. And I can't stress enough the ability for you to build relationships with people who work on the product. And, you know, you'll be involved with the product management folks, but also product design. We even have where customers are involved with, you know, our bi-weekly sprint review. So you actually would, you know, could be sitting in remotely with, you know, the team that's actually implementing the feature to, you know, give a thumbs up, thumbs down, raise questions about something that they've just implemented. So the more, you know, you can spend as little or as much time as you want. And there's a lot of folks on this call that I know are involved and have been, you know, instrumental really in I think making sure that the overall community gets the functionality with a level of quality that they need for it to be productive. So please join. Okay.
Agreed. All right. So, whoops, sorry about that. So with that, I mean, maybe we should start kind of digging in a bit to, again, maybe I would say probably the new version of the roadmap that's going to be kind of coming soon. It is in progress. So basically next month, we hope to have this version of the roadmap live. And at that point, you'll be able to join it. And there's nothing to join really, it's just a web page. So you'll be able to get in here and kind of get a bit more details about these different items that we have on the roadmap. And then again, vote for them and just get a better sense of kind of where we are in the development process. So with that, I think we're just going to kind of bounce back and forth a bit between Dave and Ramesh and myself and Nigel, and we'll just kind of start getting in here. So, I mean, at the platform level, we've got a bunch of things happening as far as Project Explorer is a really great new tool that we have. It's been out for several releases now, but I mean, great tool to really transform the way that you interact with your Civil 3D object data. And we're continuing to build that out. And I mean, a couple of things that we're doing around that are, I mean, just making it so that it's installed directly with Civil 3D is our goal, because it's now available to all Civil 3D customers. It formerly was restricted to just AEC Collection subscribers, but now it's available to all Civil 3D customers. And we really want to build that into your just day-to-day Civil 3D workflows and just make it just a tool that you use every day as part of Civil 3D. So a bunch of work happening on that. So one area that we don't have called out in this roadmap just yet, that is a key area that we are focusing on the Civil 3D side, is performance. So going forward into this year, we have a great deal of resources going into just making Civil 3D performance just overall better. Maybe Nigel, I believe you're online at this point. Maybe do you want to say anything about performance and what we're doing in that regard?
So for the last 18 months, we have been concentrating heavily on performance in Civil 3D. You will be noticing performance gains, faster drawing open times. You'll be noticing that we are rebuilding corridor baseline regions far less frequently than we would have done before, and rebuilding surfaces frequently. And we have decided to invest heavily this year, and this is not just a Civil 3D, but it's across Autodesk, on performance. So the aim is we are going to focus on performance gains that affect as many users as possible. And we're going to be doing updates when we do updates later on the year that contain this performance gains, along with analytics, so we can analyze the impact and measure where we're at. But as I said, this is not just an infrastructure. AutoCAD team are working on performance, and the Revit team's working on performance. So all the major products that you're using, there is a big focus this year and investment this year on performance. But I'll hand back to Tim.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nigel. Yeah, so performance, #1 customer satisfaction item that came up on our repeated customer satisfaction surveys that we've done for Civil 3D for the last several years. So definitely an area that we're focusing on. A couple other things. I mean, roads and highways, there's a lot of stuff going on around, again, just I mentioned quarter transitions, but maybe Nigel, if I pass it back to you, one of the other things that's been high on the list for customers has been just subassembly management. So what does this mean for you, Nigel?
So subassembly management, we have had the same system of managing and importing subassemblies into Civil 3D for 10, 15 years. And this has been a couple of issues that have been highlighted in this. One, best practice from Microsoft says, don't put executables in C: program data. Two, there are security issues with putting executables there. But and also CDEs really don't like storing executables on CDEs. So we've got a whole series of security issues why we would want to do some improvements here. But the other problem is, at the moment, if you edit a subassembly, you have to restart Civil 3D before you can use that subassembly. So testing and editing subassembly workflows are broken or fragmented because of this restart, retry workflow. Secondly, you can only ever have one version of a subassembly. So we're fixing it to allow multiple versions of subassemblies, subassembly support in CDEs, moving away from program data to allow you to store them anywhere you want, the ability to actually run subassembly composers side by side with Civil 3D and work on your subassemblies and test them in one simple cycle, clear messaging of when your subassemblies are out of date, and the ability to package up a drawing along with its subassemblies and publish it easily or send it to your colleagues. So basically a total overhaul of the subassembly, the way subassemblies are handled by Civil 3D. But the look and feel is not changing. We're not starting a new content management system. We're still using the tool palette to present the subassemblies to users. But it is just that, a tool palette. You import the subassemblies into the tool palette and you create and share that tool palette along with the subassemblies in the folder.
Awesome. Thanks, Nigel. Existing conditions modeling. So Ramesh, you want to speak a bit about kind of what's happening in that regard?
Tim, real quick before we go off of this column, should we, if there are questions related to, this topic of, quarter modeling and such, because there's one related to, quarter trim, and then there's one related, I think, of kind of a follow-up on subassemblies. Do we want to hold those all to the end?
Yeah, I mean, we can probably start.
Maybe hit a couple of them as now, but I don't think we want to go and just spend the whole hour on this, but Louisa is asking, or Lou, I'm sorry, Lou. I know you like to me to say that, but so talk of Autodesk Doc support for hosting for subassembly hosting, right? So I think that's an area that if you're involved with the beta of things that we're working on right now, you could, as well as the latest versions of Desktop Connector, I think that's something that you can actually start to test. It's because it's certainly an area that we've been focusing on, with everything Nigel just talked about. So again, plug to join the Infrastructure Futures to start testing that. Tim, I think, one of the questions will be the quarter trim, right? That's one that is very high on the list of things. So I don't know if you want to speak to that real quick.
Yeah, for sure. So again, this is, if we take a look here, I mean, we can't give specific details about this will be implemented in this version or this feature will be implemented by this particular date. That kind of goes back to that non-disclosure agreement. But the idea here is to give you, with the public roadmap, is to give you a sense of kind of what's next in line for us here. And so, like I mentioned here, so the things that are on this page are like currently in progress. These are things that our development teams have under active research. If I dig into the up next column, this is once again, these are things that are kind of high under consideration for kind of next in line behind after the teams have like finished their research and implementation of what's in progress. Then these are the things that are next in line. So like the trimming a quarter item here, you'll notice that like this has been a super high popular idea up on the Civil 3D Ideas forums for quite some time. And it also, if I kind of go back to the existing public roadmap here, it's very, very high on the list. It's 117 votes. I think this is probably currently the highest voted item up on this legacy public roadmap. So we completely understand it's a very high priority for our customers, and we want to, I mean, it's next in line for us. So that's the best I can give you right now. So we hear you, and we're listening.
Yeah, and I think there's a question here on the topic of sub-assemblies, possibility to have assemblies as data shortcuts. Right, I think that fits into a broader theme of things. Some of it is, this is where I think, you show that ability to add some comments, when voting on one of these topics. It would be, what is it that you're really trying to do, as opposed to I want a data shortcut of an assembly. It's like, what is it that I want to do? And is there a different way we can solve that? In other words, like, can we be sharing content, assemblies, sub-assemblies, part catalogs through docs, those types of things? What's the core problem that you're trying to solve? So, but again, that question though, Patrick, I think there's a broad question of content sharing in delivery and how that sits, directly into our core products, the authoring products, and how it how we're able to maintain those things. And it's the first step of that really related to sub-assemblies. Okay. Yeah, Tim, so why don't we go on to the next column? So sure. We'll try to leave time to answer a bunch of these at the end.
Good plan.
Cool. I'll take it away, Tim.
Go for it, Ramesh.
Perfect. All right, guys. So the existing conditions modeling, this, I think you're following the Civil 3D InfraWorks workflow. You're familiar with what we added, something called connector for ArcGIS. It's basically getting a lot of existing conditions from your GIS data store into your direct design, conceptual design, or detailed design, utilize it fully. So we had that tool for quite some time, but from a lot of customers' feedback, we are adding more capability to it. Kind of like the workflow is more smoother now. Now you can support AutoCAD objects, and when the data come in, you can set up your stylization so that it appears and it behaves the way exactly you want. So you can focus completely on your detailed design instead of spending time on stylizing the data that comes in. So we are adding those capabilities. There's one more thing we added. I thought something called supporting the arcs and curves as well, which was missing before. And so with that, now the Civil 3D with the connector for ArcGIS, now data can come in easily, and with your stylization, it can appear, gel in with your detailed design, and helps you do your stuff more efficiently. And same thing, the existing conditions modeling, the reality capture is one of the things that brings you the existing conditions. In the last release, we actually added the capability of classifying the point cloud data. Now you can bring massive point cloud data. Recap Pro can help you filter out all the non-surface points, give you only the surface points that you can take it to Civil 3D, generate surface, and start working on it. It's as simple as that. And it was one piece where the static scans was not supported in the last release, which we updated now. So the one that's coming up in the next release in Recap Pro, now any point cloud data you bring in, you can apply the classification. And the Pharaoh scene SDK, there are some of those things updated also come into picture. But another important aspect is the feature extraction on the cloud viewer. I mentioned at the beginning of the call, the one tool you guys definitely should check it out is publishing the point cloud data into ACC or BIM 360, and you can visualize it. From the future release, in the next one in progress, you can not only see it, you can actually extract the vector lines from the cloud itself and take it into your design and continue with your design makes it more easier way to utilize the point cloud data. I can really cover the civil structures too, Tim. So you guys probably see a lot of civil structures update. Even the previous release, we added the clipping planes where it's not just specific to civil structures, it's for overall InfraWorks, but it works more on the bridge workflow as well. The one big thing that's coming up is the Revit category mapping. We already support the Revit families as a part of the civil structures workflow from the previous release. Now, when you do the category mapping, it was great, but now if user wants, from the feedback from you guys, want the fine refinements on it option so that you can get the best out of it. That's one of the bigger things we're working on. There are a few more things coming up on the civil structures. We will update this roadmap soon. I'll get back to you, Tim, on the utility.
Cool, thanks, Ramesh. On the utility networks category, so there's still several releases ago, we implemented a new way to lay out and edit pressure networks. So we implemented the new way to basically use a pathway, like a baseline, to actually lay out a pressure network, and it follows that pathway kind of like a corridor does, as well as being able to have like branches and that sort of thing. We've been continuing to build out those tools to make just those as efficient and as powerful as we possibly can. So there's a number of different things that we've been working on the pressure network layout tools. I mean, being able to, like, for example, you'll see here, just merging two pressure networks into a single common network, having syncing of references be a bit more efficient, as well as just general quality of life and just like plants production type workflows, like just making the part symbols be a bit more flexible as they are. So definitely still an area that we've been actively working on, pressure networks. One of the other things that I think, before I pass things to Dave for a second, is one common question that comes up that I want to get ahead of before. I mean, I'm shocked that it hasn't come up yet, is the whole idea of whenever we have like a new version of Civil 3D come out, one of the first questions that we always get is, are you changing the DWG format? And so we currently have no plans to change the Civil 3D drawing format or the AutoCAD drawing format for the time being, for the next foreseeable release of Civil 3D. So just wanted to kind of get that out there. So our goal is to just have it be as easy for you to migrate to the next available version of Civil 3D that you possibly can. So just, I wanted to kind of get that out there. Before I move on to kind of up next or anything, Dave, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about collaboration. We don't have that on this list right now. So anything you want to kind of touch on there?
Yeah, if you go back to the Trello board, Tim, I can use that just to navigate. As Tim said, we're in this transition period here. So I'm not sure how many of you have had the opportunity to, or have been, made efforts to begin adopting collaboration for Civil 3D. The key technology or key pieces of technology, I think, for success have been, number one, desktop connector, which basically provides us the ability to have a local cache of data that's in the cloud, with the goal of then you interacting or opening files that are actually local. And there's been a lot of work to get that to where it's performant and reliable enough, in particular when working with the large infrastructure projects that we deal with. There's a new release of that, Desktop Connector 16.0, that came out in December. And it's just a version. It'll look like a version change, right? It goes from 15.8 to 16.0. It's actually a re-architecting of Desktop Connector, completely different way that it works. It's far more performant. We've been pushing it with very large data sets. We have working with some really key customers working on some really complicated projects. So if you haven't had a chance, or if you've looked at the solution in the past and you were waiting and you were kind of putting it on hold, now's the time to look at it again, because with this new Desktop Connector. The other piece is, are there all of the workflows that you need for production in place? The one that comes up most frequently is Sheet Set Manager. AutoCAD implemented basically an alternative workflow for the management and delivery of sheets. And it's this cloud first sheet set manager. And essentially it leverages the power of the cloud for basically when you're working on a cloud hosted project, a Docs hosted project, it's going to use technology that we have to basically process all of the heavy lifting tasks to actually occur in the cloud as opposed to locally on your desktop. So in other words, if you're going to, plot 100 sheets, from Sheet Set Manager, it's all going to happen up in the cloud as opposed to taxing your local system. Really exciting technology that's been out for a bit. It was initially launched with 2023, so last spring. But there's been some pretty notable updates along the year, including, just recently, again, in early December timeframe, kind of a co-authoring capability of the sheets within the sheet set, not AutoCAD or Civil co-authoring, but the sheet set itself. Multiple people can interact with it. So if we look here, those are things that have been delivered. Those are key things that I think really open the floodgates for broad adoption. There are a number of things that continue to be prioritized, and the best way I would describe it is we're starting to transition, I think, from does Civil 3D work well in this environment to now, what are the benefits beyond just Civil 3D replacing a LAN, right? So how do I use the drawings and the derivatives, throughout the process? Do I have like, full issue tracking environment where I can be working locally? I can see my issues being displayed within AutoCAD or Civil 3D. I can author an issue in that environment and then have that ripple into ACC, right? The migration of projects. There's a number of different things in here. So if you have any thoughts on those, feel free to, reach out directly to me or post questions up here. And again, as Tim, I've committed that we'll have this all integrated fully into the new roadmap, so that you guys can track what's important to us and provide feedback. I think that covers what I wanted to hit, Tim.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, like you said, I think that covers the big stuff.
Okay.
Before we move on to some other stuff, maybe we should kind of double back on some of the questions that we have here. So one that I'm going to actually push to Nigel. So Nigel, Jacob has asked, can we provide any thoughts on implementing generative design directly in Civil 3D?
Yes, I can cover this. So at the moment, generative design tools, especially in Revit, are based around Dynamo. 2 years or 3 years ago, we released Dynamo for Civil 3D with a set of nodes that met 60 to 80% of our customer target workflows that we targeted for the original design. We are currently working on expanding that node set to cover a vast area of both AutoCAD and Civil 3D functionality. We added Dynamo Player about 2 years ago to Civil 3D. Dynamo Player has moved across to generative design. In fact, it's now part of the generative design tool set. So our intent is at some point in the near future to start looking for some lighthouse customers to help us look at generative design workflows using Civil 3D and Dynamo for Civil 3D. So watch this space. There are some very obvious workflows that we could introduce. So Gabian calculations or quantity calculations or route planning. We have also, by the way, we do have a optioneering stroke generative design tool, which is our grading optimization tool that's already available. And I do know that some customers have managed to get the Revit generative design working by themselves in Civil. It's not that hard to work out how to do it if you actually look, but it's not supported. So watch this space. We are very interested in bringing these workflows to Civil 3D and civil engineering.
Great. Thanks a lot, Nigel. Great question. Thanks for the question, Jacob. So getting back into where we are, and I'm going to go back actually into the public roadmap or the new version of the roadmap here. In the up next category, so if we dig into some of the, let's see, I don't think it's in here actually. This is one more that I need to kind of add back in. So maybe I'll go back to using this one. So there was a question on the land development side from Patrick. So if I dig back into this one, so Patrick was asking if we can explain a little more about the multiple material layer surface modeling item for land development. And so this is one that's been high on the list for a lot of customers in some of our geographies that we serve. That basically, the idea here is that it's almost, the way that I keep thinking about it is, if you think about like corridor for more of like an area. So in like a corridor, you can have like a subassembly or an assembly and with sub-assemblies that can model like different conditions, and it can, like, for example, have multiple layers for a lane or multiple layers for a curve, like a sub base and a base and that kind of thing. Think about this in more of like a land development, more of like an area type of situation, where maybe in a parking lot, you would have different depths of pavement layers for different area of the parking lot, or different conditions for like the islands and stuff like that within the parking lot. So think of those types of scenarios when you think about this type of thing. So that's what we're trying to get at there. And then maybe Ramesh, can you maybe touch on the question regarding geopackage format?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that is one of the, I don't know whether the person who asked the question is in the audience today, but definitely that's one of the thing in our roadmap. Actually, we even added into the new roadmap. We do support many JS formats, like I showed in the connector for ArcGIS. Now you can bring in any layer, any vector layer as well. That is still a workaround for the users, but we are keeping this in the radar for the geo package support as well, either as a part of the connector or a separate FDO or the map insert, like the customer added.
Awesome, thanks, Ramesh. So I guess, yeah, and then Kieran's asking, please, clipping planes for all objects in InfraWorks. So
yes, that is in the list. I think it supports the terrain and many other features, not just for the bridge even now, but we do have supporting for everything in the InfraWorks, so that it can be fully utilized in the workflow. Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Ramesh. Yeah, folks, please keep the questions coming on Slido. So while we're waiting for some more questions, I mean, maybe we can touch on some of the items that we have here in the up next category, just kind of at a high level, maybe. So with that, I mean, at the platform level, I can mention at least a couple of the things here that we have as far as, I mean, a lot of these things are things that we have on that again, have been up on the Civil 3D Ideas forums for quite some time. So things like the ever popular, just eliminating the save the drawing before, like while you're in the middle of a command kind of thing. Trimming a corridor, we've touched on that a couple times. And then there are a number of other things as far as things that we have sooner than later than some things on the list. So for example, like the signs and markings tool has been high on the list for a while, that we've been working on kind of formalizing that tool for global users. Boy, let's see here. A lot of things that we have as far as a lot of like land development things that we have been kind of had under consideration for a while, such as just making feature lines more flexible and that sort of thing, just making them a bit more powerful and easier to work with. Ramesh has a ton of stuff that he's looking at as far as like existing conditions and reality capture. I don't know if you want to touch on any of that kind of stuff, Ramesh.
Absolutely, guys. So definitely existing conditions modeling, you can see the continuation of what we are, what's in progress. So we're supporting AutoCAD objects and some of the stylization. There's definitely going 360 on it. So save back, refresh, everything on that. And also as a part of stylization, we're also trying to do property mapping. So obviously there's some properties on the GIS side, you want some on the Civil 3D side to map them so that you have one place to look at and it works synchronously with the data you're bringing in. So those are some of the workflows we're adding to make it complete on the existing conditions. And as a part of the existing conditions, we also have the geotechnical modeler. I haven't talked much about that in this session, but there are more workflows like the lensing and ability for user to edit the data. These are all coming directly from the customer feedback during our sessions. So that is also up next on the existing conditions. And similar stuff for the reality capture as well, continuing our feature extraction cloud-based. We are actually going a little bit full-fledged on that. You'll see more capabilities up next on the feature extraction, some automation tools, AI, ML from the point cloud side, and also the visualization side, some abstraction planes. Some of the customers actually voted for it. And we know we already can give you the surface you can take into design product. Sometimes even those surface points can be way too much. So we're thinking of an intelligent way of giving you the set of points that helps you with your detailed design and other things as well. So you can actually see some of these capabilities are making those complete scan to design workflow in Autodesk product. That's the idea of reality capture.
Hey, Tim, you hit real quickly the roadway markings and signage. So a question from Nathan about just an update on it. So for those who are unfamiliar, we have been working on, I think, globalizing a technology that was included in one of our country kits. So if you're in Germany and using our country kit, you get a road sign and markings utility that's part of that. We quickly saw this is a great example of where we saw that there's global appeal for that tool. So we're working through a process of making sure that it can be used globally. So some of that is the tool itself, translation. Can it fit in a consistent way into the core product? And then also there's the content piece, like how is content managed and delivered, so that we have something that will work in Germany, in the UK, in the US, and Japan, etc. So that is in progress. Again, if anyone is interested, I'll say it again, join the Infrastructure Futures. There's a build there, and that's refreshed as we have improvements to that. So it's definitely in the active research mode. And then Tim, there was the other one. How we with merging and splitting quarters. I know that was one of the items that you had on the considered list.
Yeah, I think that one actually is currently, So we have on the kind of later in the backlog, we have, there's been a long-standing request here for a couple different things. So I think the one that's closest related to merging and splitting quarters is kind of I think the first obvious step, I think, for that workflow would be splitting and merging alignments, and obviously making sure that the associated profiles are included in that whole workflow. That's kind of the step one. That's been a super popular idea up on the ideas forum for quite some time. That's, again, it's on our radar. We don't have resources dedicated to that just yet. So again, that's a watch this space again. And that also leads back to, please, the more that you kind of flag that as critical for us in all these different places, whether it is, especially up here, once we have this new public roadmap out here where you can vote for things and add your comments. That weighs things heavier and gets it kind of closer, further up the stream to us, and gets a little bit more likely that it's going to be in our development resources sooner rather than later. So let's see.
And Tim, just to make, I just looked, I don't think the roads and sign road marking and sign extension beta is up on the Infra Futures right now. I'll talk to the person leading that. I just looked up, but if for those who are familiar, right, you've got full builds and you've got extensions and country kits and such. I think we pulled it for right now, but I'll confirm that. But that's where it will be. So Patrick, feel free to reach out to me, and I can coordinate you getting involved with that.
Yep, right, Dave. And here's how we
got out of time. How about Ramesh, Dynamo for InfraWorks? If we can do the quick.
Sure, I think that's for the common request. We are having some architecture on the API, that .NET API for the InfraWorks, and the Dynamo is definitely on the roadmap. I think we added in the public roadmap. Please vote for it. We can work it out.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave and Ramesh. So with this, I mean, I think again, we're starting to run low on time here, but I mean, the key messages here that we want to leave you with before we kind of shut things down are, I mean, a couple things. I mean, first, roadmaps, we absolutely want to make sure that we are as transparent as we are able to be with you folks. And so our public roadmaps are a great way for us to do that. And just kind of our goal, I mean, moving from the Trello, the old roadmap to this new roadmap is our intention is to be a bit more transparent about kind of when you can expect things and kind of where they are in our backlog. So that's where the in progress, up next, and later kind of works into it. This is a way that you can contribute and kind of make sure that we are that your voice is heard. We absolutely listen to the customer feedback that we get, whether it is on forums like this, whether it's just a vote, or whether it is on the forums, like specifically the ideas forums. We regularly comb and do our best to kind of respond to feedback up there and take that feedback into consideration as we build out our roadmaps. And again, I mean, the infrastructure futures program that Dave mentioned earlier, and we got into a little bit of discussion about, that's the absolute best way to get involved with our development teams and make your voice very actively heard. Yeah, so those are the main things. And again, this public roadmap, the new version of it, our goal is to have this published in February. So when we do have this published, we'll make a lot of noise about it on like the forums and on LinkedIn and as many other places that we can possibly advertise this, because we definitely want to make sure that people have the ability to like get in here, vote for what's most important, and provide their actual feedback on why things are important or why things are not important. So Dave, Ramesh, Nigel, what did I miss?
No, I think you got it, Tim.
Yeah, same here.
Yep, nice, well done.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you all. I want to thank all of our speakers and our attendees, and also Sean and David behind the scenes helping us out. The recording will be available soon on the event page, so feel free to continue the conversation there as well. And also, you can join us in many ways to connect on the Autodesk community. So in our forums, our blogs, our journals, and so forth, please feel free to check those out, connect with us there. We're always happy to have your feedback. I hope you all have a great week, everyone, and stay safe out there. Enjoy.